games. I like games too. I like games too.
Oh, precious Pepsi. I think this is what they drink on Mount Olympus. The Rugged Warrior says, I saw a bumper sticker that said, "Don't follow me, I'm lost." I almost took a picture of it with the caption, "What your heart really is telling you." Oof, man, there's some truth to that. But I don't need to get on that soapbox. You guys have heard me on that enough. I'll get on the Castlevania Symphony of the Night soapbox, but I'm hardly, not even close to the first person to get on the soapbox for this game. What was exciting to me about this was, there was all these platforming games that I just wasn't good at. My boys love Mario. I hate Mario. Those games were so frustrating to me without cheat codes, And there were so many cool, worlds being created during the era of NES especially, and also in the Super NES era, but by that time I had JRPGs galore to play. But still, I was missing out on these side-scrolling action games that had these cool worlds in them. I'd played some of the Castlevania games before, and I loved the dark gothic, vibe of it. I really love that kind of fantasy, that kind of horror, and But I was never good at those games. So man, those early Castlevania games, I was terrible at them. But this game, it was a side-scrolling platformer in this cool setting of dark gothic fantasy, but it was also an RPG, and so if you suck at platforming games like I do so horribly, you could just level grind for a while. You can just go back and forth for a bit, and okay, I'm just gonna fight little teeny guys for a while to build up my strength before I can take on this boss, and you could learn new, cool abilities and spells, and and not only that, but the mind-blowing thing about this game is there are two possible ways to kind of beat it, and one is kind of like the one the most likely way you're gonna beat it, but the other one is if you're wearing these special goggles as you fight the final boss, you can see that he's actually being kind of manipulated by a greater power than him, and that greater power is visible, and you can attack it instead of the final boss. And if you do that, then you get a different ending. The whole castle, this whole map here, flips upside down, gets filled with a bunch of new enemies, and it still works as a map. New enemies, new bosses, and you play this entire map again, and it's a totally different castle, Crazy. It doesn't quite double the playtime of the game because you just have some abilities that allow you to traverse your way through the castle more easily, I think. But it adds a ton of value to the game. I loved this game, and was so sad that they didn't make more of this type of Castlevania game on consoles. What I learned before too long was that they continued this style of Castlevania game creation on the Nintendo handheld systems, Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS. So that was another reason in the back of my mind. I was like, someday I've got to get these handhelds because I'm missing out on Dragon Quest, I'm missing out on these games, They're all being held hostage on this stupid Nintendo handheld, And so eventually I bought a DS Lite, which has a slot both for Game Boy Advance games and for Nintendo DS games. And I've got caught up on all these, and actually it was the fact that the Retron 5, which I was playing on earlier, the Nintendo and Super Nintendo games, it has a slot for Game Boy Advance games. That was one of the biggest selling points for me. I was like, yeah, I want to play these style of Castlevania games on a TV screen again, instead of them being held hostage on a little handheld, If they would just port all of these over to the Switch, I would buy it. Just make them available to purchase digitally, and suddenly I will really want a Switch. I'm still playing through this series on handhelds. I'm playing the first DS entry in this series right now. These games have great music too. That's a little high for me. Here's a little interesting bit of trivia. If you put this disc in a CD player, there's a music track on it that is not used at all during the game. It's just a music track for someone to randomly find if you choose to stick it into a conventional CD player. And after that, then I made a habit of taking all of my PlayStation 1 games and putting them in my CD player, because a lot of them, they were just, I think they were using just the same audio CD technology to put games on discs. PS2 discs were different, and you can even just see that by looking at them. So I've never been able to play a music track from a PS2 game in a CD player, but a lot of my PS1 games, I can stick in there, and they have the tracks that they will draw and load up and play while you're playing a level of the game. They'll be read by your CD player too. So I mean, it's almost like with a lot of my PS1 games, I own the game, but then I also kind of have the soundtrack to the game too, which was kind of a neat thing about that era. Now I got to figure out, now that I'm in this area of the map that I haven't filled out, I got to figure out why I haven't filled this out. Because in this game, a lot of times the reason you can't progress. I'm gonna get on a soapbox in a second here. One of the reasons that you can't progress often in this game is because you don't have some ability, like you don't have the double jump ability, which will allow you to jump just high enough to get access to this new area. Or you don't have the ability to turn into mist, which will allow you to go through these bars, these prison bar type things, So you pick up these abilities along the way as you're progressing that allow you to get access to parts of the map that you couldn't get access to before. And the comparison there is to Metroid. And there's this type of game genre that's been created called Metroidvania. And the idea was that it was games that, are inspired by Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night specifically. But the problem is that I don't like that name, because there are lots of Metroidvania games that don't have the leveling elements, the experience grinding, the ability acquiring, you can get items that'll give you access to new areas, and it's a map like this where there's lots of vertical movement in addition to horizontal movement, but it's what I want. Fine, people can keep their Metroidvania term. You use that, you define it however you want. What I want is a term that describes this kind of game, where it's those things that Metroidvania games are, or that Metroid-inspired games are, but it also has RPG elements like XP grinding and looting and equipment upgrading, all those kinds of things that are present in these games. I'm really looking forward to a game called Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, which is made by the same guy who what's the word I'm looking for? He was the head guy and head designer on all of these kinds of Castlevania games. And now he's independently making a game that's, I think it's going to be releasing in, I want to say early 2018. And it's definitely like in this style, and even like a dark gothic style too. So I'm really looking forward to that. Wait, no! Oh my gosh! Chaos and death everywhere! All kinds of stoning! Oh my gosh! Oh wait, use the thing, Pater! Oh, Eclectic1995 was asking what my Twitter name is. Yeah, I don't think @Christian_geek is one of mine. I guess it could be. I don't know. I'm not very good at social media. But I know for sure that at christiangeekcentral, I think that's what's on Twitter. I think Christian Geek Central. I could be wrong. Dang it. I should know that. If I was good at like self-promotion and marketing and all that kind of stuff, I would say, why, it's blah, 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 and then you'd have the information you need. I'm sorry. The Christian Geek Central Twitter is @Christian_geek. Huh. Now we're moving away from PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2 era of gaming with a game that, oh man. This is a Diablo clone, exclusive to the PlayStation 2. In fact, it's a Sony Studios game, which makes me just wonder why in the world they've been taking a lot of their like exclusive PlayStation 2 properties and kind of like upraising them a little bit and making them available on the PlayStation Network or PlayStation Store. I don't know why. This is a exclusive Sony Studio property. why they wouldn't have done this. It was successful enough to warrant a sequel. It's a Diablo clone that I enjoy better than playing Diablo, including Diablo 3. I like this game and the other games this studio made in the same style better than any Diablo game I've ever played. Champions of Norrath! And this was created by Sony Online Entertainment, Snowblind Studios. I think I was a little misleading there, implying that it was a Sony exclusive Sony studio. I don't think Snowblind exclusively belonged to Sony, but this property did this. It was Sony Online Entertainment. Snowblind also did the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games. Same engine, same kind of gameplay. I loved it a lot, and then they eventually made a Justice League Heroes game using the same system. What stands out to me about this game is that it was an action game that was also an RPG game. So I was slowly but surely coming away from these turn-based RPGs. A PlayStation 2 was my parents' wedding gift to us. And my mom was like, she wanted to be sure. She was like, we're buying this for you so you guys have a DVD player, for your apartment, It functions, it works as a DVD player, right? Because I put it on the registry, and put a note like it works as a DVD player, This could be our DVD player. So I was able to get a PS2 as a wedding present instead of having to scratch and save to buy one myself. But this game stands out to me for two reasons. One, because of the gameplay. It was yet again another action game that had RPG elements in it, and so I was able to get through it by level grinding if I needed to compensate for my crappy hand-eye coordination skills. And the other thing that makes this game really special to me, I don't think it was the very first time. I think I played it through once by myself, and then the second time I played through the entire thing with my wife Holly. And my wife is not a video game player, and this was of course before we had kids. It would never happen today for us to commit to playing through an entire game like this together. Not even close. Since then we've played a couple of puzzle games together. We've done a little bit of Portal together. We did a little bit of a game called Elo Milo together. She tends to like more of the puzzly type games, but we played from beginning to end. It was kind of a recurring thing once or twice a week. We would play Champions for 30 or 60 minutes or something. Ironically, she hated shopping, what she called shopping. I loved going to and upgrading my equipment, taking the money that I'd found from looting and buying new stuff and upgrading my stats and stuff, and she hated all that in-menu stuff, Alright, so actually I'm going to load this game here where I'm playing a Dark Elf, and this is actually a second playthrough using the character that I used on my first playthrough. There's these different levels of difficulty, and so you can build up your character like halfway through the skill tree through one playthrough of the game, and then pick him up right where he left off, start a new game, and build your way up through the second half of the skill tree. And so you can play through the game. It really adds to the replay value because you're learning brand new skills that second time around. It's very much a Diablo clone, so I mean, the UI is different, but a lot of it will look very similar. Chad says, Hermit Gamer does video game streaming. Interesting. It is, isn't it? Rugged Warrior says, I'm beginning to realize I'm more of an extrovert, but I'm shy. Yeah, it can be kind of confusing to sort that out, because it's really less about, how bold you are or how uncomfortable you are around people. It's more about how do you recharge. And if you kind of get a charge out of being around people, then there's some element of you that is an extrovert that's kind of getting charged from that. I don't know if that's ever true of me. There might be some rare instances where I've gotten kind of a charge of being around people, but really, for the most part, I recharge by being alone. Oh my gosh, they're everywhere! I really like the sound design, and any game that has like crunchy boot sounds or little sounds when you are picking up equipment and jingling coins as you're rifling through somebody's possessions that you just killed. It makes me feel happy. Oh yeah, I was commenting earlier in the stream that I'm not sure if there's a game that I've played through more than like 3 times. This one. This one and the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games. I played through Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance at least 4 times now, because you can unlock... There's multiple classes that you start with on those games, the Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance games, which I wish all of these games would come to the PlayStation Network. Come on, guys. But yeah, in the Dark Alliance games, you also unlock characters from the what are those books called? From the it's a D&D series, the Icewind Dale, the Forgotten Realms books, and the Icewind Dale series has a character named Drizzt, or however you want to pronounce that, and then like his arch nemesis is also a character, and those are both unlockable characters in those two games. I think only Drizzt is unlockable in Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 1. Be patient, please. This is another cute thing they do, is like they have the characters in all of these games, including, well, maybe not the Dark Alliance games, but in Justice League, definitely. They'll make comments, sometimes like breaking the fourth wall, trying to get the player to get moving. But yeah, you can unlock one or two characters after a playthrough of those games, and there's so many reasons to replay those games. Great stuff. Hey, are you here to say goodnight? Okay. You know what, maybe on Sunday you can get a donut, okay?
We can get a donut on Sunday.
That sounds good. You want to say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Camera's right there.
Hi, guys.
Alright, sleep good. Love you. Oh my gosh! Alright.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have fun doing your live stream.
Thank you.